Are you a radio enthusiast?
A research student?
Or a curious thinker looking for an adventure?
If this sounds like you, welcome to
The Summer I Found My Spark.
My name is Maci.
And I'm Errah. We're thrilled to be back for another exciting semester of interviewing Adelphi's brightest minds. In this podcast, we ask current research students about their journey of discovering their research topics, the gruesome process of reaching out to mentors, their successes, setbacks, and their future goals ahead. We hope this podcast can guide our listeners in their own path of research and self-discovery.
This episode is brought to you in collaboration with the Spark Research Center, where curiosity meets innovation. Each summer, the Spark Center funds students to take on independent research projects across various disciplines. Whether you're interested in computer science, dance, literature, or public health, there's something for every listener with a curious take on life. So keep your ears sharp, for this podcast might just leave you inspired or searching for your own spark. To find out more, please visit the Spark's Instagram page and website linked in our description.
Today, we're joined by Dr. Joseph Lombardo, a retired physician with more than 30 years of experience in anatomic and clinical pathology, who also served as a chairman and laboratory director at several hospital university medical centers. Dr. Lombardo earned a bachelor's degree in biology from Adelphi University in 1975 and an MD PhD from SUNY Downstate Medical Center. Dr. Lombardo has numerous publications and taught in medical schools both in the US and abroad. Dr. Lombardo, thank you so much for joining us today. We're so honored to have you in our studio.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Well, we want to start by rewinding the clock a little bit. So, Dr. Lombardo, how was your experience studying biology at Adelphi, and what classes, research projects, or professors most influenced your decision to pursue an MD PhD track?
Well, I had enrolled at Adelphi in the medical technology program, which in 1971 was a very strong program here. And that program was heavily slanted in science. The two women professors who oversaw that program was Doctors Smart and Gockenauer. And I wound up doing research in Dr. Smart's laboratory. The reason I had chosen medical technology was that given the amount of education, the salary was fairly high. And in my house, which was a blue-collar family, my father had always said the purpose of an education was to get a good job and to make a good salary. So I had chosen the medical technology program. I could go through how I got into the program. So in high school, my father worked in a grocery store. He would bring home encyclopedias, and I would peruse the encyclopedias, sort of like surfing the internet today. And they would have job descriptions, the amount of education necessary, and the salaries. So medical technology, I was interested in science and hospital work. And medical technology had a 4-year program, and the salary was relatively good. So I decided I wanted to be a medical technologist. At that time, Adelphi had a very strong, as I said, medical technology program. And so I applied in my senior year to Adelphi in the medical technology program. And I sort of racked my brains thinking if I applied anywhere else, but I don't think I did. At any rate, shortly after I applied, I got a letter from Adelphi saying they were very impressed with my application and could I please call the dean to discuss my application and other affairs. So the time slots that they had given me were when I was in school. I was in high school, but I had a lunch hour, and in those days there was no cell phones, so I went to a phone booth with a bag of coins, put the coins down, and I called the dean, Dean Craffer, and spoke with him. And he said they were very impressed with my application. If I would consider coming to Adelphi, they would admit me, and they could sort of ferret out a scholarship for me. And I told him, well, I appreciated that very much, but my family didn't have any money. I didn't have any money. And I would really need a full scholarship to go to college. It's sort of presumptuous of me. But Dr. Craffer was adamant. And finally, after negotiating on the phone, in the phone booth, he agreed that he would give me a full scholarship if I could keep my GPA up to 3.7. And he would continue that for 4 years if I applied to early decision. And so I did, and I got into the program. as I said, the program was heavily slanted towards science. So it was a 4-year program. The first 3 years were schoolwork, and then the last year was an internship in a local hospital. So I took Intro Bio with Dr. Napolitano, and that was a full semester course, Intro 1, Intro 2. I started to do independent research in Dr. Smart's lab later on at my time at Adelphi. And I think I started doing research there. She worked with bacteriophages. I was interested in it, but her and Dr. Gockenauer were very tough professors. Dr. Smart was a chain smoker, and she didn't take any nonsense. And quite honestly, I was afraid of her. But I thought if I could work in her lab, maybe she'd get to know me. It would lessen my time there. So I was doing that. So in the 3rd year, I'm slated to do my internship in the 4th. Dr. Napolitano, I was taking a course with him in invertebrate zoology. And he was always curt with me and abrupt. And we were in a small group once, and it was so obvious he was angry with me for some reason. So after the group disbanded, I went up to him and I said, Dr. Napolitano, is there something about me you don't like or something? Have I done something? And much to my chagrin, he said, well, there is something. I said, oh, no. And he said, during that time, he would give, his tests were essays. He would give a research problem, and then you would have to write an essay on how you would approach solving it. So he said, you do so great on my research projects. You really have a bent for it. Medical technology is a great program, but it's not for you. I feel like you really should be doing independent research, maybe as a PhD. So I said, well, I would think about it. And I thought about it, and I thought maybe that was a good idea, but I went to see Dr. Smart because for the politics of it, I was already accepted to an internship in the 4th year. I had made a commitment to that. And since she was the head of the program with her and Dr. Gockenauer, I went and I discussed it with her, and she was very enthusiastic about me doing a PhD. She said, don't worry, just call the head of the hospital, and I'm sure he will understand why you're dropping out. And so I did, and he did. He understood. So Dr. Smart had done her postdoc, I believe, at Mount Sinai Medical Center. So she was familiar with the clinical scenarios labs in the hospital. And she had recommended, since you're interested in micro, why don't you apply to PhD programs in pathology as well? They do a lot of research with cell cultures you would find very interesting. And perhaps it's a little less competitive than trying to get into micro. She wasn't sure, but she said I would apply to both microbiology and pathology for a PhD. So I did. And at Downstate, I was interviewed for a PhD in pathology by an MD PhD interviewer who looked at my grades and said, your grades are very good. I had kept a high GPA average. And he said, your grades are very good. He said, we have an MD PhD program. I'm in that committee. All of the candidates, he said, as a matter of fact, all of the candidates are pre-med students who have gotten into medical school who want to do a PhD. He said, why can't a PhD student go for the MD? And so he said, I'm going to present your application to the committee and see what they say. And I had very mixed feelings about it. And it's not a sort of a cliche statements about the MD. My sister's about 8.5 years younger than me when she was born. My mother developed maybe what would be called today postpartum depression. Went to several psychiatrists who started to prescribe prescription drugs. She became addicted to the drugs and then alcohol. And drug addicts can be very creative with how they get drugs, and my mother was not an unintelligent woman. So she would go to physician A, B, C, D, and then go back to the beginning getting prescriptions. So it was very tough times for my family. And at one point, about 4 or 5 years into it, she tried to quit cold turkey. She started to seize. My father called the hospital. They came and they committed her to a sanitarium for about 6 months, 5 or 6 months, where she received electroshock therapy. And after that time, she came out unaddicted to the drugs, but never the same. She had lost that sparkle. At any rate, so when I say that I really didn't want an MD, I had a certain amount of antipathy towards MDs. But Dr. Smart, and she didn't know this story, said to me, you know, with an MD, it increases your job opportunities, maybe your salary. And so she said, you should go for the MD, PhD.
Yeah, thank you for your story. I think it's really incredible how nonlinear your trajectory has been. And, you know, something we also heard in the discussion before we started recording was that usually it's medical students who are aspiring to be MDs who kind of go into PhD. But it seemed like in your case, it was almost reverse engineered. You didn't want to pursue an MD at first, but then you got into PhD and then you were recommended an MD.
Right.
So it's very fascinating. What skill sets, in your opinion, should college students who either want to do an MD or MD PhD aim to adopt during their undergraduate program to really prepare themselves for this venture?
Well, I'm going back on my past experiences, which go back many decades. When I was accepted into the MD PhD program, I wasn't a pre-med student. So I had the required courses, but there were a lot of courses that were strongly recommended that I hadn't taken. And they were comparative anatomy, genetics, physical chemistry, biochemistry, and I think that was all I can recall at the moment. And I think they would have helped me tremendously for the first 2 years of medical school, especially, you know, comparative anatomy, and histology was the other one. Histology is the study of tissue under the microscope. And so those would have helped me tremendously. I think now, with the current boom in artificial intelligence and the pros and cons of it, I think somebody who was going into pre-med might also want to take courses in artificial intelligence so that they could understand the flaws and strengths of the programs that they are using. In addition, I would say that I would say that studying the humanities as well, literature, understanding the human condition from a literature perspective, from a English history perspective, I think would also be very good in being able to communicate with patients. So I would say that those two fields tacked on to what I said previously would be helpful.
Excellent advice. I think a lot of med students should take humanities.
Absolutely. I think that's very insightful. Um, we've researched and studied with many students on the show who talk to us about their interdisciplinary efforts, where they are trying so hard to be well-rounded and balanced in their studies. But I do think that those words are helpful, that someone would want to hear that. So switching gears a little bit, Dr. Lombardo, we know that you established a full-service virology and STD laboratory at the Rutgers School of Biomedical and Health Sciences and identified the first case of HIV-2 in North America. So could you lay out the timeline of these events for us and how the experience of achieving these goals and pushing through this system shaped your medical identity?
Well, I was a resident at Mass General, and one of the attendings there was taking a position as the chairman at the University Hospital of Medicine and Dentistry in Newark, New Jersey. And prior to me graduating, he had asked if I would come and direct the microbiology laboratory in the medical school. And I said, okay. I took a 4 to 6 week fellowship in my last year of residency at Mass General in the Department of Microbiology, and then went down and agreed to take the job. And on the first day of the job, in meeting with the chairman, my new chairman now, he said, okay, well, now you're here, build a virology lab. And I said, virology? He said, microbiology. And he said, well, aren't they basically the same thing? And I said, no, they're like two totally different scenarios. He said, well, you're going to build a virology lab. And I remembered, and I called upon my experience at Adelphi with Dr. Smart. Remember, I was in a medical technology program. And the one thing Dr. Smart and Gockenauer impressed upon me was that a good clinical laboratory is only as strong as its medical technologists. And to my mind, in the laboratory, in the hospital, one of the unsung heroes are medical technologists. At any rate, I could hire one position to help me build this lab. And so I put out an advertisement for a medical technologist experienced in virology. And I was able to recruit a supervisor in virology at one of the major New York hospitals who wanted to move back to New Jersey, be closer to family. And so I had a med tech who came in who had a lot of experience in clinical virology. I had a lot of experience in cell cultures. And together we built a virology laboratory. And as an offspring of that, sexually transmitted disease laboratory came across as an offshoot.
Virology and STDs are really amongst one of the biggest medical outbreaks that we're really experiencing. So it's fascinating how you started it back in the 80s. And I want to cite this statistic from the website of HIV government that there are approximately 1.2 million people in the US who are currently living with HIV, and about 1 in 8 don't know it. And just yesterday, as of April 28th, all board members overseeing the NSF were axed. And this is already in addition to the drastic budget cuts that have been taking place since last year, especially in US aid. I'm wondering, what does this, in your experience working in these departments, what does this mean for the future of HIV research and really the health of global population? Tricky question.
Well, when I was at the UMDNJ, the University School of Medicine and Dentistry, I got a CDC HIV surveillance grant. So I worked very closely with the CDC, Dr. Fauci, Dr. Michael St. Louis, many of them, all dedicated, highly intelligent people. As a species, we depend on our intelligentsia to prevent disease. HIV led to the AIDS epidemic. There were about 80 million people infected at one time that progressed to AIDS, and about 45% died. That's in contrast where there were, close to 200 million people infected with COVID and 7 million people died. But it's only through our investigative research and knowledge and dedication that we are able to circumvent pathogens that prevent disease. And so I think the people best capable of doing that are the people who have devoted their lives to the studies of these types of issues.
Mhm. Well said.
Yeah. We asked you a lot of questions about your academic background and your medical experiences. So tell us a little bit about what you do for fun. What hobbies and activities keep you sane during your years in medical school, and what keeps you grinning and happy post-retirement?
Um, well, my wife keeps me happy and grinning post-retirement. But we both ride motorcycles. My wife got her license to ride about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. So she has her own motorcycle. Prior to that, she would be a passenger on mine. So we like to do motorcycle riding. We had 2 basset hounds, and we would show them in dog shows, which was always an intriguing event. I'm very interested in wilderness medicine. So I got certified as a first responder, and anybody can get certified as a wilderness first responder. You don't have to be in medicine. to do that. I became very interested in it, so I pursued it for an advanced wilderness life support course that was held in Iceland and in part in Glacier Park, Montana. So I like being outdoors, and I like doing medical work outdoors, being in emergent situations. So those are the things I read.
What are you reading these days?
Oh God, you're really going to ask me that. I read a lot of, you're going to laugh, but I read a lot of apocalyptic novels.
I love apocalyptic novels.
Because it cheers me up. I don't know why that is.
I actually understand. Have you read Don DeLillo?
Oh, yes.
I'm
yes,
a big DeLillo fan.
Yes,
so I
indeed.
understand.
I like Shakespeare. I like a lot of Shakespeare. I like, I'm trying to think of the titles I'm reading now. I would be embarrassed to say some of them, but that's what I read. Fiction. I like fiction more than nonfiction. I live in a nonfiction world, so I sort of like fiction.
You have such a profession for so many years. I can imagine that would help decompress in some ways to engage in those lighter activities.
Actually, I think you're right. Yeah, I think it did. Yes, indeed. Yeah.
And just for our listeners, they can't really see us in the studio right now, but I just want to make a note how Barbara and Dr. Lombardo, you guys have been like really cheering and supporting each other for this podcast and just now, and I can really see the support in this room as well.
Barbara and I started, it was the term going steady then. Is it exclusive now? I'm not sure what the term it is, but she was 16 and in 11th grade and I was 17 and as a senior. And we started going together. And then we got married 49 years ago. We've been together for 56 years, but we got married 49 years ago. Oh.
And Barbara is also, I wanted to add, a graduate of Adelphi University, class of 76. Yes. So it's pretty fascinating. We have amazing alumni joined with us here. So here at PAWS Radio, we have something we'd like to call the oh no moments. This is when the project idea you've spent weeks refining gets shot down, or the results you were hoping to get aren't really achieved. But as a researcher, we know that failure is fundamental to success. Have you had any oh no moments during... Let me rephrase my question. What's the biggest oh no moment you've had in your medical experience, and how do you deal with those rejections and setbacks?
Well, the one that comes to mind, I was working, so the MD PhD was a 6-year program. 2 years was a basic science. 2 years was research in the lab for your PhD. The 5th year was clinical studies, clinical rotation. And then the last year, many MD PhDs would elect to do research to finish their doctorate. And so I was at the beginning of my last year, and my thesis was based on morphologic variants of certain tumor cells. And we found out that the tumor cell line I was using had been infected with Mycoplasma hyrinus, which could alter morphology. And of course, my thesis was on the morphologic differences. So, I had worked on the project so long, what was I going to do, other than cry? But we came up with a solution, actually, where we tried the solution where I took the tumor cells and injected into, because Mycoplasma, I should back off, it was resistant to the antibiotics we put in the cell cultures. So we couldn't kill it by antibiotics. So I injected the tumor cells into the mice, and the mice cleared the infection. And then I had to repeat the experiments. But by that time, I was so versed with the experiments, and the experiments stayed the same. But that was an oh no moment when I thought all my research was down the drain.
And how did you deal with that? Moving forward, what did you learn from that failure or that moment?
I had learned that out of that failure, or at least that observation, came the observation that you could cure Mycoplasma infection by injecting intraperitoneal in mice. And we published a paper, but believe it or not, there was a paper published prior to ours that said basically the same thing. So, but we had like an independent discovery, but that wasn't the game. But at any rate, so, failure, I don't know who coined the term failure, but honestly, what is failure? I mean, penicillin was discovered by the investigator. I'm blocking the name of the guy who found penicillin. Oh my God, it's terrible. But he found cell cultures, petri dishes with clear zones around, and from there he isolated penicillin. So failure is not failure. It's an observation point.
Completely agreed.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we have one final two-part question for you. So there are many students who are and will be applying to advanced degree programs, working on their own thesis or capstone research, and applying for research grant opportunities or looking into these options. So do you have any advice for those students who want to pursue research or advanced degrees such as yours, but feel overwhelmed and confused by the process?
And be overwhelming and confused. But I felt that I really received a lot of support from the Adelphi faculty, um, people who have been through the process, who could guide me through the process and at least minimize the confusion or be there to help direct me when I was confused. So I would say, take advantage of the faculty here. They really, I mean, they have research interests and they have teaching interests, but they are dedicated to the students, and you should take advantage of them, because through your success, they can vicariously succeed also.
Wonderful. I think that's good to hear. We love stories of supportive faculty and advisors. Um, if you were to go back to the beginning of your research journey or the beginning of your educational pursuits, what wisdom would you impart to yourself?
Somebody asked that question of Winston Churchill. They said, well, would you want to go back and would you want to do it again? And he said, well, it was an incredible journey once. so, so maybe I would fall back on that. But repeat the question again. I'm sorry.
No problem. Back to the beginning of your journey, your research journey or your educational journey, what wisdom would you impart to yourself?
So the wisdom that I would impart to myself um, would be um, to have goals and aspirations, but have the flexibility to understand that many times things change over time, and um, sometimes your goals change or your aspirations change, and it's not a betrayal of what you thought you wanted to be. It's a growing process where you're developing into the person who you will be.
I think this is such excellent advice, especially in the world we live in post COVID, where we have we have the economy changing as we speak. We have job positions and different ideas popping, but then also sort of deflating. So I think it's something reassuring for students to hear as they not only tackle their individual aspirations, but just the changing landscape of the world as well. But thank you so much, Dr. Lombardo and Barbara, for joining us in the studio today. We're really grateful for your time and for your aspirational stories that our listeners would be overjoyed to hear.
Uh, it was a privilege. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. And thank you so much to the Spark Research Center for sponsoring this episode and continuing to support student innovation across campus. If you want to learn more about how to get involved with Spark or to apply for next summer's program, check out their page on the university website. We'll link it in the episode description.
That wraps up today's episode of The Summer I Found My Spark. Until next time, I'm Ira.
And I'm Macy. Stay tuned, stay curious, and keep reaching for your spark.